The bridge of the horizon sphere was silent, except for the sharp beeps of warning signals. Every crew member stared at the shifting darkness on the view screens. It wasn't just empty space. Something was moving inside it, bending light around itself. Captain Mara Solis stood in the center, her eyes fixed on the growing distortion. "Magnify," she ordered. The image expanded. At first, it was hard to see a clear shape. The thing looked like smoke and shadow, but it had mass, enormous mass. Its edges flickered between solid and transparent, as if it didn't fully belong. In this reality, small points of light shimmered along its body, like stars trapped under its skin. Commander Elias Kor stepped closer to the display, his voice low. "That's no ship. That's alive." The rescued Valery, lying on a medical stretcher near the back of the bridge, sat up weakly. His eyes were wide. "It is the hunter," he whispered. "It follows the light. It eats the living." A ripple of unease moved through the human crew. "Distance?" Mara asked. "Closing fast," Lieutenant Voss replied. "At this speed, 2 minutes until contact." Mara's voice was calm, but inside her chest, her heart pounded. "All ships. Combat positions. Form defensive ring around the carrier. Keep weapons hot." The fleet moved into formation. Human ships were not the most advanced in the Alliance. Their weapons lacked the elegance of Krinari beam arrays or the reach of Valery plasma launchers, but they were built tough. Layers of armor, redundant systems, and crews that refused to break under pressure. The shadow creature changed direction without slowing, weaving through the twisted gravity of the black zone like it had lived there forever. As it neared, its size became clear. It was larger than the horizon sphere by at least 5 times, its surface shifting like an ocean of black glass. "Fire on my mark," Mara ordered. The moment it entered weapons range, she gave the signal. Bright streaks of railgun fire and bursts of missile trails shot into the dark. Explosions lit the creature's surface, and then faded as if swallowed whole. "No visible damage," Elias said grimly. The thing moved faster. Tendrils of shadow extended from its body, stretching toward the nearest destroyer. The Vanguard's pride tried to turn away, but the tendrils wrapped around its hull, dragging it toward the creature. "Target the tendrils," Mara shouted. "Human." Guns roared again. This time, bursts of concentrated fire cut into the shadowy appendages. Pieces broke apart, dissolving into nothing. The Vanguard's pride escaped, but its hull was scarred, and its shields flickered weakly. "It's learning," Voss said, voice tight. "It's adapting to our fire patterns." Mara didn't like the sound of that. "Then we don't give it patterns." Elias glanced at her, understanding. "Unpredictable strikes." "Exactly. Randomize the firing sequence. Change weapon types every volley." The crew moved fast, switching from railguns to pulse cannons, then to missile bursts, then back again. The creature's movements faltered slightly, as if confused, but it wasn't retreating. Instead, it opened what looked like a mouth, a jagged tier of darkness wider than the ship, and from it came a deep vibration. The sound wasn't heard, so much as felt, shaking through the hull and into the bones of every crew member. Some of the younger officers froze. One clutched his headset, breathing fast. Mara's voice cut through the fear. "Hold your ground. It wants us scared. Don't give it what it wants." The vibration grew stronger. Lights across the bridge flickered. Systems began to report. Strange malfunctions, targeting computers resetting. "Comes cutting out for seconds at a time. It's interfering with our electronics," Elias said. "If we lose navigation in here, we're dead." Mara finished for him. The creature lunged toward the horizon spear, its tendrils stretching wide. Mara gave the order to dive. The ship's engines roared, pulling them down and under the creature's body. It passed above them like a moving night sky. So close the hull sensor screamed warnings. From below, Elias fired a concentrated missile spread at one of the shimmering points on its body. The explosions tore through the spot, and for the first time, the creature recoiled. "That's it," he shouted. "Those points, they're weak spots. All ships, target the lights," Mara ordered. The fleet focused fire on the glowing spots. One by one, they blinked out in bursts of flame and shadow. The creature twisted violently, its tendrils lashing out at random. A destroyer took a direct hit and spun out of control. Mara had to make a choice: press the attack or save the crew. She chose. "Voss, bring us about. Elias, cover the destroyer." The Horizon's spear surged forward, interposing itself between the destroyer and the creature's strike. Railgun fire tore into the nearest tendril. The shadow limbs split apart, dissolving like smoke in sunlight. The destroyer limped back into formation. The crew's relief was short-lived. The creature was pulling away, retreating deeper into the black zone. Captain Voss said cautiously, "It's leaving." "No," Mara said, watching the strange ripples it left behind. "It's not retreating. It's leading us somewhere." Elias frowned. "You think it's intelligent?" Mara's voice was quiet. "I think we just made it angry." The black zone seemed to close in around them, and somewhere in that endless dark, the hunter was waiting. The human fleet followed the shadow deeper into the black zone. Outside the viewports there were no stars anymore. The darkness here was heavier, like a fog that swallowed light. Even the glow of the ship's running lights seemed weaker, dimmed by the strange void around them. On the Horizon's spear, the crew worked quietly. The earlier battle had shaken everyone, but no one dared speak of turning back. Captain Mara Salas stood in the center of the bridge, her gaze locked on the forward screens. "Keep sensors at maximum," she ordered. Lieutenant Voss frowned at her console. "That's the problem, Captain. The readings, they're wrong. Distances keep shifting. It's like space itself is bending." Ilia's core leaned over her shoulder. Could it be another gravity distortion? Voss shook her head slowly. "If it is, it's not natural." The rescued Valery officer, now stable enough to stand, approached Mara. His voice was low, his tone grim. "This is what it does. It pulls you deeper, where you cannot run. It chooses the place where it will feed." Mara met his gaze. "Then we'll make sure it chokes." The fleet pressed on. Hours passed without sign of the creature. The silence was worse than the fight. At least in battle, you knew where the danger was. Now, every shadow on the screen felt alive. Then, without warning, the lead destroyer's comes flared. "Captain, we're picking up something ahead. It's huge." The voice cut out. "Voss, locate them." Mara snapped. "I can't," Voss replied, her hands flying over the controls. They were there 1 second, and now, she froze. "Captain, the destroyer's gone." Ilias's voice was tight. "Gone how?" "Not destroyed, not drifting, just not there." Before Mara could respond, alarms blared. The darkness outside began to ripple, like water disturbed by something massive moving beneath the surface. Shapes emerged, not one, but several. At first they looked like the hunter. Same black, shifting bodies, same faint points of light under their skin. But as the fleet adjusted formation, the truth became clear. They were smaller than the one they had fought earlier. "Multiple contacts," Voss reported. 9, no, 10 of them. Closing fast. Ilias's jaw tightened. Smaller doesn't mean weaker. The swarm moved like a single mind, circling the human fleet. The tendrils lashed out, testing the defenses. Railguns and missiles fired, in bursts, cutting down 2 of the smaller hunters. But the others kept pressing. On the coms, the Valery officer's voice shook. "These are its young. It sends them to tire you, while it waits." Mara understood now. This was a trap. The big one, the true hunter, was forcing them to fight here, wearing them down until they couldn't resist. Focus fire on the One's closest to the carrier, she ordered. We lose that ship, we lose our fallback. The battle was brutal. The smaller hunters didn't have the massive size of the first creature, but they were faster. One darted close to the Vanguard's pride, latching on with tendrils. The destroyer's guns blasted at point-blank range, tearing it apart, but not before it ripped through half the ship's armor. Every few minutes, one of the swarm broke through the defensive ring, forcing ships to shift position. It was chaos, and in chaos, mistakes happened. Captain Voss cried. The Iron Gale is drifting. Engines are down. Mara didn't hesitate. Elias, take a boarding team. Get them running again, or we lose them. Elias gave a sharp nod and was gone, his team moving fast toward the docking bay. Mara turned her attention back to the fight, giving rapid orders, keeping the formation as tight as possible. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. One by one, the smaller hunters fell, blasted apart by concentrated human fire. But every kill came at a cost. More ammunition spent, more damage taken, more energy drained from the shields. Finally, the last of the swarm dissolved into nothing. The fleet floated in the dark, battered but alive. Ilias's voice came over. The Iron Gale is operational again. We're heading back. Mara exhaled, but she didn't let her guard down. All ships, form up. We're moving before the big one arrives. But the Valry officer shook his head slowly. It's already here. The darkness ahead shifted, not in the quick darting motion of the smaller creatures, but in a slow, massive swell. The hunter emerged, larger than before, its surface glowing with more points of light. Voss's voice was almost a whisper. It fed on the ones we killed. Elias returned to the bridge just. The hunter blocked their path like a living wall of night. Its points of light pulsed slowly, almost like a heartbeat, and the massive tendrils swayed in the void. Behind the human fleet, the darkness itself seemed to twist, sealing the way they had come. On the horizon's spear, every crew member felt the pressure of that moment. The air on the bridge was tight, every breath deliberate. Commander Elias Kor stood near the central console, arms crossed, thinking fast, the idea forming. In his mind was dangerous, but so was standing still. Captain, he said finally, I think I know how to kill it. Mara Salas turned toward him. I'm listening. Elias brought up the tactical display. When we hit those glowing points on its body, it reacts. We heard it. But after it ate its young, it got stronger. It absorbed them. That means it's capable of pulling in mass and energy. Maybe even too much for itself to handle. Mara caught on quickly. You're saying, feed it something it can't process. Exactly, Elias said. We overload it. Give it a target it thinks is food, but instead of giving it strength, it tears it apart from the inside. Lieutenant Voss frowned. And what exactly are we feeding it? Elias looked toward the viewport, toward the human carrier in the center of the formation. The carrier's got heavy reactor cores, far too much energy for one of these things to take in at once. If we overcharge them, make it look like a damaged easy target, we could draw it in. The crew went silent. It all understood what that meant. The carrier was full of people. No, Mara said firmly. We're not sacrificing a ship full of lives. Elias nodded. I'm not suggesting we keep the crew aboard. We evacuate them to the other ships, set the carrier to autopilot, and make it look like it's barely holding together. The hunter will take the bait. Voss's hands were already moving over her console. We could rig the cores to go critical in stages, so it doesn't detect the overload until it's too late. The Valry officer spoke quietly from the side of the bridge. If this works, it will never hunt again. Mara looked around at her crew. She saw the exhaustion in their faces, the fear in their eyes, but also the fire. They weren't just here to survive. They were here to win. Elias, she said, start moving the carrier's crew. Voss, prep the detonation sequence. We have one shot at this. And if we miss, we don't get another. The evacuation was fast, but tense. Across the fleet, shuttles moved back and forth, carrying the carrier's crew to the other ships. The hunter didn't move to attack, it just watched, the points of light along its body, pulsing faster now, as if it knew something was happening. Inside the Horizon's Spears hangar, Elias oversaw the last group of evacuees. A young engineer hesitated at the ramp. "Sir?" she asked quietly. "What if it doesn't work?" Elias met her gaze. "Then we make it work. That's what humans do." When the last shuttle left the carrier, the fleet pulled back slightly, leaving it floating alone. The massive ship's hull was deliberately scarred to make it look crippled. Faint sparks and simulated fires lit its outer frame. On the bridge, Mara gave the order. "Begin the lure." The carrier's lights flickered weakly. It drifted in, a slow spin, leaking false distress signals into the void. The hunter moved. It didn't rush. It glided forward with terrible grace, its tendrils stretching out like shadows over the carrier. The vibration came again, that deep, bone-shaking hum that rattled the entire fleet. "Reactor cores at 60% overcharge," Voss reported, her voice tight, holding steady. The tendrils wrapped around the carrier's hull. The ship shook, as if caught in a storm. Then, slowly, the hunter's jagged mouth opened, and the carrier was pulled inside. 80%, Voss said. "It's swallowing the whole thing." On the view screens, the carrier's hull vanished into the creature's darkness. For a moment, there was nothing. Then the points of light along its body flared brighter. 95%, Voss called. Almost there, the hunter stopped moving. Its body shuddered, ripples of shadow racing along its form. The lights on its body flickered erratically, some blinking out. "Now," Mara said. The overloaded reactors went critical. A blinding flash lit the black zone. The shockwave tore through the void, shaking the human ships even from a safe distance. For a moment, it was like watching a star explode inside the darkness. When the light faded, the hunter was still there, but it wasn't whole anymore. Great chunks of its shadowy body were dissolving into nothing. Its tendrils thrashed wildly, then broke apart like smoke. "It's breaking up," Elias said, his voice a mix of disbelief and triumph. The crew on the bridge began to cheer, but Mara raised her hand. "Don't celebrate yet. Scan the area. Make sure it's not reforming." The sensors swept the space ahead. Slowly, the readings confirmed the hunter's mass was dispersing. The Valerie officer stared at the screen, his expression unreadable. "I never thought I would see the day. You humans. You did it." Mara exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. "No," she said softly. "We all did it." But in the deepest part of her mind, a thought lingered. If this was just one hunter, how many more were out there? The black zone was quiet. Too quiet. The human fleet drifted among the fading remnants of the hunter, its shattered mass dissolving into thin wisps of darkness. The pieces looked like smoke, but acted like liquid, curling and stretching in strange, slow waves before vanishing completely. On the Horizon's Spear, the crew tried to catch their breath. Some leaned against consoles, others sat in their chairs, with eyes closed for a moment. The battle had drained them physically, mentally, and in ways they couldn't explain. Captain Mara Solis stood at the forward viewport. The stars were still hidden by the black zone's strange void. She hated that. Stars were home. Stars meant you could find your way. Elias Kor stepped up beside her. "Feels wrong," he said quietly. "Like it's not over?" "It's not," Mara replied. Her voice was calm, but her hands were clasped tightly behind her back. "We came here for answers, not just survival. The hunter was only one part of this." Lieutenant Voss looked up from her console. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange." Mara turned. "Strange how?" "It's a signal," Voss said, "but not like any distress call or come beacon. It's old, Very old, and it's coming from deeper inside the zone. The Veilry officer, standing quietly in the shadows of the bridge, stiffened. You should not follow it, he said. This place was never meant for life. Mara didn't answer immediately. She stepped closer to Voss's station and studied the display. The signal was faint, almost buried in background noise, but it pulsed with regular intervals, a pattern. Can you clean it up? She asked Voss. Nodded and began filtering out the static. Slowly, a rhythm emerged, 3 short pulses, 1 long, 2 short. Then it repeated. Elias frowned. That's not random. That's language, not Alliance language, the Veilry officer said. Not any I know. It's human, Mara said quietly. The bridge fell silent. Elias stared at her. How could it be human? No ship from Earth has ever been here. The Black Zone didn't even exist on Alliance maps until 20 years ago. Mara's eyes stayed fixed on the pattern, and yet, here it is. Voss looked uneasy. Captain, the signal is coming from a fixed point, not drifting. Whatever's sending it is deep, at least another 20 hours into the zone at our current speed. Elias glanced at her. If we go that far, we're outside any possible rescue range. We were outside rescue range the moment we crossed into this place, Mara said. The crew exchanged looks. No one wanted to go deeper, but no one wanted to say the words out loud. Humans had a way of turning fear into fuel, and Mara knew. It set course, she ordered. The hours that followed were tense. The Black Zone grew darker still, if such a thing was possible. The view screens showed shapes that might have been debris, or shadows, or something else entirely. Gravity fluctuations rolled through the ships, making the floors feel uneven beneath their boots. More than once, Elias caught crew members glancing toward the windows, as if expecting something to appear right beside them in the mess hall. Conversation was low. A few tried to joke to lighten the mood, but the sound didn't carry far. Even the rescued Veilry stayed quiet, watching the darkness through the viewport with unblinking eyes. On the 19th hour, the signal grew stronger. Voss reported from the bridge. We're within 10,000 kilometers of the source. The readings are strange. I think it's coming from inside some kind of structure. Mara's brow furrowed. A station? Not exactly, Voss said. It's huge, bigger than the Horizon Spear by 100 times. It's not moving, but it's not anchored to anything either. It's just floating. When they finally came within visual range, the bridge fell silent. The thing was ancient. It looked like a fortress built into the side of a jagged, black asteroid, except it wasn't rock. The material shimmered faintly, as if it was made of frozen starlight. Spires rose from its surface, and strange geometric patterns glowed faintly along its length. It's beautiful, someone whispered. Elias didn't take his eyes off it. And terrifying. Voss's voice was hushed. The signal is definitely coming from inside. The structure is still powered. The Veilry officer stepped forward, his voice low and urgent. You do not understand. My people have legends of places like this. They are prisons not for the living, but for things that should never live again. Mara glanced at him, and, your legends say what happens if the prison is opened. The Veilry's eyes were cold. The galaxy ends. Elias shifted. The cryopod hummed quietly in the cold chamber. Its soft blue light cast long shadows across the walls. Captain Mara, Salas, and Commander Elias Kor stared at it, disbelief etched into their faces. Is that human? Elias whispered, as if speaking too loud might break reality. Mara stepped closer, studying the figure inside. He was tall, his face sharp, features familiar, yet impossible. He wore an Earth military uniform, not one anyone on the Horizon Spear recognized. The patch on his sleeve was faded, showing a symbol of a long-forgotten mission. Voss came behind them, her voice trembling. How is this possible? Humans have never reached this far into the zone, not like this, not ever. The veil officer's eyes narrowed. This man belongs to a time long before the Alliance existed. He should not be here. He should not live. Mara frowned. Why? He shook his head. Because the Black Zone, it traps what it finds dangerous. It consumes anomalies, things that could change the balance of the galaxy. He should have been lost. He should have been forgotten. Ilias's brow furrowed. But he's alive. Clearly, he's in cryostasis. Someone put him here intentionally. Before anyone could answer, the cryopod hissed and lights blinked. A panel slid open on the top, releasing a slow mist. Sensors detected the man's heart beating faintly. Steady. Mara's voice was quiet but commanding. Preparia Javivo sequence. We need him awake. Voss hesitated. Captain, we don't even know who he is. If this is a trap, do it, Mara said firmly. We're past traps. Minutes later, the pod's systems activated fully. Warm air circulated inside, and soft mechanical sounds echoed as the pod's lid slowly retracted. The man's eyes fluttered open. For a moment, the room was silent. His gaze swept across them, calm, unafraid. My name, he said, voice low and even, is Lieutenant Marcus Hale. The crew froze. That name had been lost to history, part of an Earth mission launched decades before the formation of the Alliance. A mission declared missing in space, assumed dead. How? Mara breathed. You've been here all this time. Marcus Hale's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. I volunteered for cryostasis, a mission to explore the edge of this zone. We found something. Something bigger than any of us imagined. The zone itself took my team, left me, preserved, for a reason. Elias ran a hand down his face. Preserved for what, Captain? This doesn't make sense. Marcus sat up slowly, his movements measured. The Black Zone is alive. The hunter you destroyed earlier. It was only one of its creations. I've seen it adapt. I've seen it train them, hunt them, feed them, and I've seen what it can really do when it decides to awaken fully. Voss stepped closer, voice shaky. Then, the hunter wasn't the worst of it. No, Marcus said softly. It's a sentinel, a protector, something ancient, something guarding the core of the zone itself. I was placed here to wait for those who could face it and survive. Mara's mind raced. You mean, we were being tested? Marcus looked at her, his gaze steady. Not tested, prepared. You humans, you have a way of thinking differently. You improvise. You risk. You fight when others flee. That is why you were chosen. The Alliance, they underestimate you. But the Black Zone doesn't. Elias stepped forward, jaw tight. So all this, all the danger, it wasn't random. It was designed to weed out everyone except the ones who could think like us. Marcus nodded. Exactly. And now that you've reached me, you are ready for what comes next. The signal you followed was my beacon. I woke it when I sensed humans entering. I needed to see if Earth's soldiers still have what it takes. Voss's eyes widened. You mean, we passed? Mara's lips curved slightly. We survived the hunter. We saved our fleet. And we found you. That counts for something, Marcus. Hale's gaze turned toward the viewport, looking out at the endless darkness of the Black Zone. What lies beyond this point is the heart, the place the zone protects. And it is not forgiving. But you have a chance to change it. Elias crossed his arms. And what exactly do we do once we get there? You rely on your instincts, Marcus said, voice calm. Use what makes you human, your courage, your unity, your unpredictability. Nothing else can survive there. Nothing else can succeed. The crew exchanged looks. Fear lingered, yes. But beneath it was something stronger, hope, determination, the spark of humanity that no alien logic could understand. Mara stepped forward. placing a hand on the console beside the pod. Then we move forward. We've come this far. We don't stop now. Marcus Hale nodded slowly. Good, because the zone will test you. It will push you to your limits, and it will try to break you. But if you survive, you may be the first to truly understand it, to control it, and to stop it from ever threatening the galaxy again. The Valery officer whispered behind them, awe and fear mingling in his voice. I have never seen humans like this. You endure what none of us would dare. Mara's eyes scanned the room, settling on her crew. Listen carefully. We are going into the heart of the Black Zone. No one knows what awaits. But we do know this. We will face it together, and we will not fail. Voss swallowed hard. Captain, this is insane. Elias smirked faintly. Welcome to humanity, Lieutenant. We don't know any other way. Marcus Hale stood, stretching slowly after decades in cryostasis. Then let's not waste time. The Black Zone has been waiting for you, and you are ready. The chamber fell silent. The soft pulse of the ancient signal echoed around them. And outside, the endless darkness waited, patient, hungry, and unaware that humans had already changed the rules. Mara's hand tightened on the console. She looked at her crew. Let's go. And for the first time in the Black Zone, there was a sense that humans might not just survive. They might conquer. The shuttles moved cautiously toward the Black Zone's core, each one gliding silently through the oppressive darkness. Outside, the void seemed to thicken, twisting light around them in strange patterns. Stars were gone, replaced by shadows that shifted as if alive. Inside the horizon's sphere, the crew waited tensely. Even after surviving the hunter and discovering Marcus Hale, no one felt safe. Every sensor reading was a potential threat. Every shadow could hide disaster. Mara stood at the bridge, hands gripping the railing. Keep steady. Remember, unpredictability is our advantage. Nothing in this place has seen humans like us. Lieutenant Voss worked rapidly at the controls, adjusting the shuttle's trajectory through the fluctuating gravity fields. The core is ahead. Sensors show an enormous structure, bigger than anything we've imagined. It's alive. I think energy is pulsing from it, like it breathes. Elias stepped up beside Mara, his eyes narrowed. If it breathes, then it can fight back. And if it fights back, we have to be smarter than ever. The Valery officer spoke from the side, voice low and wary. This place is not natural. The core is a nexus. It senses intent, analyzes weaknesses. Many species tried and failed. You may be the first to even reach it. Mara's eyes swept across the crew. Then we make history, or we die trying. I don't see any other option. The shuttles entered. The core, immediately, the environment changed. Gravity twisted unpredictably, pulling at every direction at once. The walls of the cavern-like structure were black, but shimmered with faint streaks of color, as if the material itself was alive. Shields up, Mara ordered. Keep all energy focused on propulsion and defense. Sensors began picking up movement. At first, it was subtle, a ripple across the walls, a faint vibration beneath the floor. Then, larger shapes emerged, massive, shadow-like forms, like the hunter, but more organized, more intelligent. They blocked the corridors, each one observing the humans, studying them, predicting their moves. Elias muttered, "It's like they're thinking." "They are," Marcus Hale said quietly. "The zone creates guardians. They aren't just hunters, they're extensions of itself. Every movement is a test." Mara clenched her jaw. "Then we improvise. We don't fight on its terms." The first guardian lunged. Its body expanded and contracted like liquid shadow, tendrils slicing toward the nearest shuttle. Elias fired from a railgun, but the shots merely grazed the surface. The tendrils whipped around the shuttle, testing its defenses. "Focus fire on weak points," Marcus shouted. It adapts to predictable patterns. The crew scrambled, rail fired, pulse cannons roared, and missiles streaked through the twisting corridors. Each strike was different, unpredictable, humans changing direction, timing, and tactics, mid-battle. The Guardians faltered. One's tendrils retracted, as if confused. Another hesitated, swaying. "That's it," Mara said, eyes sharp. "Keep them guessing. Move faster. Strike unpredictably." Hours passed in tense bursts of attack and retreat. Shadows lunged, humans countered, shuttles weaved like dancers. Fatigue threatened to overwhelm them, but the crew's determination never wavered. Finally, they reached the core chamber. It was immense, a hollow sphere of shimmering black material, lined with glowing conduits that pulsed like veins. At its center was a massive, floating crystal, radiating energy. The pulse of the zone itself was strongest here, filling the shuttles with vibrations that rattled bones and shook minds. "It's alive," Elias whispered. "Alive and aware," Marcus said. "It senses every thought, every emotion. Fear feeds it. Confidence blinds it. We need to be united, precise, and daring all at once." Mara looked at her crew. "Then we focus. All energy on one move. We can't be reactive. We must define the terms of battle." They formed a circle around the crystal, shuttles aligned to act as both. The black zone had fallen silent. No more guardians. No more shadows. No more pulsing crystal at the heart of the void. For the first time, the human fleet could breathe. Their sensors finally calm. The oppressive weight of the darkness lifted. Captain Mara Salas stood on the bridge of the horizon spear, staring out at the endless black. Her hands were steady, but her heart still raced. They had done the impossible. Marcus Hale stood beside her, his long sleep finally behind him. He looked at the crew with awe. "I've waited decades for someone like you to arrive," I thought. Humanity had lost its edge in the galaxy. I was wrong. Elias Core rubbed his eyes, leaning on the railing. "We didn't do it alone. The crew, the teamwork, the humans' unpredictability saved us. Always does." Voss let out a shaky laugh. "I can't believe it. We actually faced the core of the Black Zone and survived." The Valerie officer, standing quietly in the corner, shook his head. "No species I know could have done this. None. You humans. You bend rules, defy logic, and still somehow survive. It's remarkable." Mara nodded, but her eyes were focused on the dark expanse. "And it's not just survival. It's a warning. The Black Zone may never threaten the galaxy again, not because it's gone, but because it knows humans are here. We are its equal, its enemy, its force it cannot predict." Elias glanced at the fleet. Ships that had been battered, torn, and nearly destroyed now floated in formation, systems slowly coming back online. Every pilot, every engineer, every soldier knew they had survived against something no one else could have faced. Marcus. Hale's voice was quiet but filled with reverence. The zone was designed to test, to destroy, to consume. But humans change the rules. You rely on courage, on unity, on thinking no one else would even attempt. That is why you won. The crew allowed themselves a moment of quiet celebration. No cheers yet. The emptiness of the Black Zone reminded them that victory here was fragile. But in that moment, the feeling of triumph was pure. Then, Mara activated the comms. "All ships, report status. Confirm integrity and crew readiness." One by one, the voices responded, weary but alive. Reports of minor damage, exhausted crews, and relief filtered through. The fleet had survived the impossible. Voss leaned over her console, checking sensors one last time. "The Black Zone's energy readings are fading. It's like it's sleeping, or acknowledging that it cannot fight humans." Elias grinned. Not a bad outcome for a day's work. Mara allowed herself a faint smile. "This is bigger than any battle we've faced. The galaxy will never know what we did here. They will never understand the courage it took to survive and conquer the heart of the Black Zone. But we do. Marcus Hale nodded, eyes shining with emotion. I've spent decades thinking humans had been relegated to the sidelines of galactic history. I was wrong. You are not just participants in the Alliance. You are its defining force. The Veilry officer's voice shook. I've fought alongside many species, seen warriors of every kind. But Earth's soldiers, you are unlike any other. Your unpredictability, your willingness to risk everything. It saved not just yourselves, but countless lives across the stars. Elias glanced at Mara. Captain, what now? Mara looked out into the void, her reflection sharp against the viewport. Now, we return, we report, we prepare, and we remind every species, especially those who underestimate humans, that Earth's soldiers do not yield, do not falter, and do not obey rules that limit survival and ingenuity. The crew of the Horizon's Spear and the accompanying fleet began their slow, cautious journey back through the Black Zone. The path behind them, once ominous and foreboding, now felt like a monument to their courage. Every shadow, every twist, every threat they had faced had been conquered through determination, unity, and brilliance. Marcus Hale walked among the crew, quietly offering advice and guidance. Remember this feeling. Remember the fear, the intensity, the exhaustion. That is what defines humans. That is what gives you the edge no one else has. Elias laughed softly. I'm going to tell my grandchildren about this, assuming we live long enough to have them. Voss shook her head, smiling. No one will believe it. Humans survived the Black Zone sounds like a myth. Mara turned from the viewport, her eyes meeting every member of her crew. Let them call it myth. Let the galaxy sleep, thinking the Black Zone is unconquerable. We know the truth. We've proven it. And that is enough, the Veilry officer whispered, almost to himself. The humans are extraordinary, not because they are stronger or faster, but because they refuse to be predicted, to be limited, to be anything less than themselves. Mara's voice carried over the bridge, steady, proud, and unwavering. Humans don't just survive. Humans endure. Humans adapt. And humans will always rise when the impossible stands before them. Outside, the Black Zone stretched silently, a void that had devoured so many before. But now, it held a new respect for the species that had walked through its heart and lived. And in that silence, one truth remained clear. Where the universe saw darkness and fear, humanity saw challenge, opportunity, and triumph. Captain Mara Salas allowed herself a final, satisfied breath. Earth's soldiers, she said softly, have arrived, and the galaxy will never be the same again. For in the heart of the void, humans had left an indelible mark, not as conquerors, but as a force of courage, ingenuity, and unyielding spirit. And somewhere, deep in the emptiness, the Black Zone seemed to pulse once more, not with hunger, but with acknowledgement. Humanity had prevailed.